All right, let's start.
Okay, continue Basar B'chalav Tzadi Hey. Now, today we're continuing with Seif Dalid. Yoreh Li. Just for fun, I heard from Rav Shechter recently that it says Yoreh Li about 99 times in the Rambam. If anybody wants to do a search and let us know how many times it comes up in the Shulchan Aruch, I don't know. So Yoreh Li She'im Natnu Ephraim B'mayim. If you put ash in your water, so obviously this means a lot of ash mixed in, so now the water is distasteful and becomes ta'am lifgam. All right, just sprinkling a little ash on the top of water is not going to do anything. Okay. Right, we're talking about you have a hot water on the pot. You can putrefy your water with cold or hot water. If you put in soap or ash, the poskim say soap is the same. But the case is we're talking about you want to put one pot inside another pot, and the question is, there's the blia from the heat of the liquid, does it transfer? So, right, Yoreh just the Shach points out, din ze lo nimtza b'shum posek. And you're not going to find it anywhere. And he actually has a tzarech iyun on it, but it's generally the accepted halacha. If Yoreh Li she'im natnu efer b'mayim chamin shebiyoreh kodem shehinichu hakaderot b'tocha. Before you mix, it has to obviously be before. That's what we're trying to avoid, the transfer. So there's going to be no transfer from one pot to another through the medium of hot liquid. For sure it's not going to happen if the water is putrid, because by the time it gets from tam to tam, it turns to lifgam before there could be any exchange or blia. So then, afal pisha shuman davuk behen, even if you have ba'en, you're looking at a piece of meat or cheese and it's stuck to the pot, and you're going to put it inside the other kli, so the water is going to be taken from the actual ba'en and transferring it to the other kli, it's still not a problem because there's no transfer. The ayedei ha'efer hu notein ta'am lifgam. When it tries to transfer it, it'll make the cheese flavor or whatever the transfer is pagum, distasteful before it reaches the other kli, and therefore even mamasha. So therefore, there's not going to be a problem. Let's see. Okay. Real brief, let's just talk for a second about dishwashers. So we're not going to get into in detail, but suffice to say, it could be that it's mutter lechatchila according to the Rama. Again, you have to make your own analysis of what's touching what, first, second, third. Irui kli rishon, irui kli sheni has a din of kli sheni, but it seems the pashtus according to the Rama, it's probably going to be okay. However, many of the Achronim are not happy. Look at the Shach, not happy with the Rama, and
specifically milk dishes and meat dishes in the dishwasher at the same time.
Right, exactly. According to the Rama, maybe mutter to use a dishwasher with meat and milk, dirty dishes at the same time, and the psak. Anyways, Lamaisa, most poskim will tell you it's aser lechatchila to use the same dishwasher for meat and milk. There are many tshuvas on it, maybe changing the racks. There's some that are big poskim that are makel this way, that way. But in general, without changing the racks, most common psak is not to, at least lachatchila. And there is a famous psak of Rav Yosef. He says lachatchila it's mutter to use them at the same time if, and the if kind of ruins it, if the soap goes in first. Which is, I believe, impossible to know and usually not the case. Because I think most of us are a little familiar. First, I believe the hot water usually spritzes out first, rinses everything off, and then the soap gets mixed into the hot water. And then it keeps going with the hot soapy water afterwards. But you have an initial spritz of hot water. So it seems to be, even according to him, it should be aser lechatchila to use them at the same time. Maybe separately would be mutter according to him lechatchila, and but most of us don't. what happens if you, anyways, you can ask your Rav, what happens if you find a fork, a milchik fork in your fleishik dishwasher, or vice versa? So here, I believe most or all poskim are meko. I just heard from Rav Shimon Conway, B'Shem Rav Goldstein, one of the main rabbanim in the city from Beit Shemesh. Spoke with Rav Genish and others, but basically the minhag is generally it's mutter lechatchila to use your fork. You don't even have to kosher it. You don't have to even pour Yoreh kli rishon on it. It's all mutter. Just in short, some of the obvious reasons is we have the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah itself that seems to say it's probably okay. You're dealing with Yoreh kli rishon or Yoreh kli sheni, taking it from one to another. Who says it has the power? Often forks, again, it depends what utensils we're talking about, but it doesn't matter. By a fork, often it's not even really, it might not even be really isser, it might just be using on a kli sheni. Again, davar gush might make it worse for more Ashkenazim. But anyway, but still, even if you're going to use like a stirring that you know was used in a kli rishon, still the minhag is to be meko. There's soap that's used in a dishwasher generally. It could also be you didn't see that the hot water hit one thing and went to the other thing. We don't even really know what happened behind the closed door of the dishwasher. That's another issue. And one other issue also to point out is that kibolo kach poto. It might be aser. Theoretically, you might want to say it's aser off the first cycle of hot water, but it's in there for half an hour, 3 hours, whatever your thing is. And the second time around, you're getting you're koshering yourself. So that's just some interesting. Okay, let's.
Is it okay to use soapy water for Hagala?
Hagala, you should use soapy water, especially if it's a kli rishon. Correct. But okay, we'll discuss Hagala when we get there. Just something that came out of this is we're going to get to davar charif later today or tomorrow. A davar charif, let's say you would chop your onions with a milchik knife. Milchik knife, you're chopping your onions. So generally speaking, we consider that davar charif, we consider it to be turning that piece of onion, and now it's full of blias of milk. So that is a problem now to use it, to mix it with your chopped liver or whatever it is. And now if you're going to use it in a, well, even if you use a parv, that really belongs to the next one. Even if you're going to be using a parv knife, and you warm up your onions, you saute your onions, fry them, whatever, in a milchik pot, now that's a problem of using it, at least for Ashkenazim, even if it's a ben yomo. For Sephardim, I believe in a ben yomo, we're going to see this, to now take that and mix it with your chopped liver or your steak or whatever you want to use it for, that's a definite problem. Even if it's an eno ben yomo, at least for Ashkenazim. Okay, so that's how it's relevant to here. So we learned if you're going to use, we learned about heating up hot water from one to another, if you can do that lechatchila. Something else Rabbi Forst in his Sefer points out, comes out parav utensils. Can you use parav utensils lechatchila for an item? So everything's parav. Oh, what's the case? No. Maybe I'm confused. This case? Never mind. Doesn't make sense to me right now. Sorry. It was an interesting case. Maybe I'll mention it next time. Okay. Hey. Ein manichin kli sheyesh bo kutach etzel kli sheyesh bo melach. Cannot place. You have a bowl of milchik spread right next to, I don't know, your whipped cream, your sour cream, whatever it is, right next to your salt. Why? Because it's very common for there to be a little splatter, and it will land right to your salt bowl, and it'll stick there. Again, it's not salt shakers we're talking about. It's a bowl of salt, less common nowadays. And or to have your salt, many times you do have a bowl of a container of salt with the lid that comes off. But don't leave it with the lid off right next to your bowl of yogurt or whatever it is. It can splash there. It doesn't really mix in. It might be the same color. You might notice it. All right. Aval mutter.
Assuming it's not a sign, that's a bowl.
Well, yeah, because we're talking about a bowl of salt that you use for cooking, for eating. It's a normal bowl of milk it's not designated for milk or meat.
This is a right that you don't need a bowl of salt separate for
But if it's next to a liquid, it's not a problem because it's going to mix in, or you'll see it. It's a different color. We're not worried. Okay. This is obviously we're talking about they're open, like we just said, because it can splash inside. You have a small counter, whatever, big counter. You didn't realize you put them right next to each other. There's no problem. This is just a harchaka lechatchila. I don't know if I'd call it an eitz tova, a little stronger than that, but that's really what it is. It's not a problem. Not a problem with the Yevid. Okay, Vav. I think that's where we are. Vav. Mutar litem b'toch teva shel basar eitzel shel chalav. On the same shelf, on the same rack, maybe you have a big tray. I'm not talking about a tiny little container because we don't want it. You're allowed to put a piece of meat and a piece of cheese relatively next to each other, but not very close. You have to be responsible, but it can be on the same shelf or the same tray or a large container where they're not likely to touch. We're talking about a case where it's not likely to transfer or touch one to another. If it's likely, you carry it and you know it's going to roll into each other, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking normal, responsible, it's probably not going to touch. You don't have to be choshesh, maybe it will touch. Haga. Anything. It could be a drawer, refrigerator, cupboard, whatever it is, any case. A what? You cannot put them in the same knapsack because they all get mixed together when you're carrying it and are in the same bag unless you wrap them in a plastic bag. Yeah, once they're wrapped, it's not a problem at all, for sure. Haga, v'yesh machmirin lechatchila, some are machmir lechatchila, not to put them open on the same rack, same shelf, or same whatever. V'tov lizar lechatchila, b'makom she'enot tarich, and it's good to be machmir. Okay. Okay. Zayin. Yeah, let's go to Zayin. Melech hanatun b'ke'ara. You have salt on a plate, a bowl shel basar. Mutar li to know bechalav. Right, you have a bowl. You always put a fleshik bowl, a regular fleshik bowl. You put soup in it, hot soup. You're allowed to put salt in there when it's clean. Obviously, it's clean, dry, whatever. You put salt in there, and you're allowed to use that salt from your fleshik cold, dry, whatever. Dry is just pragmatic. Cold, clean dish. You're allowed to take salt from there and now sprinkle it onto your cheese, and that's no problem whatsoever. Even if it's a ben yomo, even though it's pure salty, because there's no power for salt to take from a clean kli. Dry. Well, I mentioned dry, just being practical. That's not really relevant either way. Hot is an issue, but we're talking about cold and clean. Okay. Haga, we have machmer gam bazeh tavo alav bracha. And it's good to be machmer as well. Ki yesh machmirin lechatchila. So some are machmer lechatchila. Okay, obviously for these halachas, you see using the same salt shaker from as far as the inside is concerned. Obviously, there's no issues. The only thing I will say is if you're using the same salt shaker or ketchup bottle, if you're using it with greasy hands, it's good to make sure it's clean. If you're going to use the same one for meat and milk or have a separate one.
Also eating.
Edim?
Zeah.
What about Zeah?
If you're pouring from the same salt or from the same ketchup bottle onto a hot meat and then onto the hot farina.
Okay, so you're pointing out if you're pouring from it onto
The
steam can go through the holes. So we discussed that. The question, well, I'll just leave it as a tzarech ian, depending how close it is and it's wide open. I'm not sure if you have to worry about adim going inside, because usually we learned in general, if it's far apart or it's wide open, we assume in general it escapes and it's not going to, but it might go inside. Okay? It's a good point. Okay. Good point. Might be an issue if it's close by. All right, so the Be'er Heitev points out separate salt shakers. Okay. So, no, like we mentioned, it's a good idea. If you're going to, okay. Let's see. Sadi Vav, I think we're ready. Oh, I think what Rabbi Forrest was saying, you can use the same utensils, like a mixer, a part of a mixer, for cheese or whipped cream or whatever, and for meat, just not at the same time, as long as everything is cold and not spicy. So that's what I wanted to point out. Okay, as long as it's not davar charif and it's all cold, you can use your parav for whatever you want. Okay, as long as you clean those blades. Okay, let's get into Siman Sadi Vav. We're going to start davar charif. Okay. Aleph. All right. Okay. Aleph is snon o silka. Snon is radishes or silka. I think, where did I see it? We're not really sure what silka is. We're assuming it's not beets, correct? Here, it's later on, but the makor of silka is the Rashba, and Aruch Shulchan points out we don't know what it is. It's not generally the beets that we know of today. It's not really considered spicy. Okay, that's. Yeah, I know. So, but I don't think it's spinach either. The shach or some others say tradin. Okay, I don't know what it is. Okay, Snon o silka shechadcham besakin shel basar ben yomo o she'eno mekunach. Now, so if you cut a davar charif, here I'll just say it right now. Where do we? The only examples in Chazal that we see is a davar charif is in Gemara Chulin Kuf Yud Aleph, talks about snon radishes by basar b'chalav, and in Avodah Zarah Lamed Tet and the Mishnah maybe Lamed Hey or Lamed Vav talks about chiltis. We're also not sure what that is. Chiltis it's either referring to the sap, the plant, the roots or the stalks, whatever it is. I'm not sure what it is. And it's talking about a davar iser, not basar b'chalav. So those are the only two food items in the Gemara that's considered charif. It's a machlokas if it includes anything else. Right, so it only refers to tznon and chiltis. We're going to see that chiltis has a power to do it. The Gemara says chiltis can transfer a davar charif even if it's an eino ben yomo. It doesn't say it by tznon. The question is, does that halacha by chiltis with davar eser, if that applies to all other davar charifs? So that's a machlokas. We're going to see a little bit about that. The Ra'ah points out that's the main issue that we're worried about is with cutting with a knife, is that there's shamnunit alav, on it, the fat that sticks to it, the residue. And the Rashba points out it's actually the taste that's absorbed into the knife. Even if you clean it, you won't see it. And it's in there, and with the davar charif, with the force of a knife, that it has the power to extract it and to be mavuya, absorb into something else. Okay. Right, so we mentioned some machlokas by Eno ben Yomo and Ben Yomo, and right, and so it comes out according to the Ra'ah, even if it's clean, it won't transfer. So that's just it's only going to be a transfer if you didn't clean it or you didn't do ni'itza, which we're going to see a little bit more. Okay. Now, the Shach points out, and this is the way it is lahalacha, is the issue of duchka de sakina, lamaisa, the only time, again, there are more strict opinions, but the main halacha, the only time you have to worry about duchka de sakina, using a knife, it's when it's done with a little bit of pressure with the sharp end and not just, and it's a davar charif. It has to be that you're cutting it, stabbing it, cutting it, whatever, with a knife in a davar charif. Otherwise, it doesn't apply. If you want to just spread something with a knife, that's not a problem. Also, if it's very soft, it doesn't create an issue. We're going to see. And I'll just say it, I think we maybe mentioned it. Stabbing it with a fork, so most poskim that you ask, stabbing with the prongs, the teeth of a fork into a piece of meat is not called duchka de sakina, because it's only the halacha for 1,000 years, whatever, more. We have this concept in Chazal of Rishonim and Achronim and before, a couple thousand years. The only thing that's ever been mentioned is a knife. And they had forks. It's not anything new, and it's never been brought up, never been an issue. The Darkei Tshuva is the only Achron that mentions, that I know about, that's written down, that mentions he's machmer for a fork. So there are some who are machmer for a fork, but I don't think that's the more popular opinion. Okay, let's read it. Let's continue inside. Again, Snona silka shachat chamasakin shabasar ben yomo or she'eno mekunach. So the case is, it's a ben yomo, or it could be even more than a ben yomo, and it's not clean. So again, it could be clean ben yomo, or dirty, even longer, where there has mamashas on it. Asur le'ochlam bechalav. It's, you cut the radish with this knife. It's asur to eat this knife and now put on butter or cheese on it. Ad shi'ito mimakom hachatach kedei netilas makom. So for the halacha of duchka de sakina, the halacha is it gets absorbed up to a kedei netila. What's kedei netila? It's not klipa. Klipa, we learned, is the thinnest amount that it's all in one piece. Probably could be less. We'll just call it 1 millimeter for an example. Probably, maybe could be half. I don't know. It also depends on the food item. Okay. Kedei netilat makom shehu ke'ove etzba. Netilas makom is at least 20 times that. It's 2 centimeters, maybe 2.5, according to Chazanish. But it's based on Rav Chaim Na'ah, it would be 2 centimeters. Kedei netilas makom shehu ke'ove etzba, the thickness of the finger, which means basically the middle part of your the thumb, the middle part of the end of your thumb, between the end and the first knuckle, the joint. There you go. Oh, shiyat yimenu. Well, you taste it. You can taste it and find out if it has a ta'am of basar b'chalav. In other words, before you mix on to the butter, you taste it and see if it tastes fleshik or not. V'lo yehi bo ta'am basar, and as long as it doesn't have the flavor of basar, she'az mutter be'adacha, then it's mutter if you just rinse it off. Clean it off. Okay. So many of us point out that it's the end of the Taz over here in Beis. We're not so good at being able to figure this out, and um, therefore, we don't rely on taste, and that's what we generally paskin. We don't rely on taste. Now, what's interesting, the Shach points out over here, we do rely on te'ima by a Jew. A Jew, we allow to trust him b'di'evid. A goy, we don't. That's what he points out over here. Okay. Right. That's the halacha for Ashkenazim and Sephardim. We generally don't allow it. Okay.
What do they hold? What do we hold? We should do the tila.
Yeah, just straighten the tila. Lamaisa, you have to take off 2 centimeters. Kedei netila, or whatever. And some say, so the second opinion of the Shulchan Aruch is we have to be machmer for a davar charif. You haven't used the knife, it's a clean knife, and you haven't used it in a week, or whatever, 24 hours. And now you cut with it. Does that radish have a din of basar or not? Or does it absorb? So the Ikar opinion, according to the Shulchan Aruch, is you don't have to worry about it. That's Mikar din according to the Sephardim. And we're going to see, V'yesh Omrim, there is an opinion that says, Ino ben Yomo, it has the power to regenerate it, right? And we mentioned, we only saw that inside by Chiltis, by Davar Eser. Question is if that applies here or not. This opinion is Machmer. Read it? V'hu makuna. Obviously, we're talking about it's clean, because otherwise it'd be a problem for everybody. V'im lo notal mehem kedei netila smacham. What happens if you didn't remove kedei netila? V'gam lo ta'amam, and you didn't taste it. In other words, you didn't. It's there, and right, and we're assuming the blia went in. V'bishlam b'chalav, and now you cooked it. So what's the halacha? Tzarich shishim keneged what? Not kedei netila. Because we don't say chanan and kedei netila. We're worried about. We're talking about davar heter in our siman. We're not talking. Okay, so how much you have to worry about? The amount of meat that may have went in from the knife. So how do we determine that? Keneged mashenaga me'asakin bahem, and that. So you take the knife. And it's the volume of the portion of the knife that you use. So the Shach points out, minastam, you would use the entire knife minus the handle. So it needs to be shishim, the entire blade, the entire knife. But it really, that's minastam. Now, if you know you only use, in general, up to a certain point, I would assume the Shach would be meko, up to where the maximum potential, and if you were watching how much of the knife went in and how much was used, since you were watching, you only have to be shishim keneged, the portion of the knife that was was used. Good? Okay. And the same thing if you're going to use the knife of non-Jews, and it could be an isser treif in there, it's the same halacha. Okay, when I say it's the same halacha. Okay.
You can't have a bigger share if the snide is smaller than the knife.
What? Stop? Oh, okay. Well, sorry, lost track of time. We'll continue tomorrow.